Be me 22 in my final years of college studying sociology. I've always considered myself pretty aware of how the world works, especially when it comes to gender dynamics. Had a boyfriend, let's call him Mark. We'd been together for about a year, maybe a little more. He was what my mom would call a good man. Steady job in IT, never caused drama, remembered my coffee order, and would sit through my weird indie films without a single complaint. He was stable, reliable, comfortable, and that was starting to become the problem. At the beginning, it was great. He was attentive, planned dates, always seemed excited to see me. But over the last few months, things had settled into a routine. We weren't going out as much, mostly just chilling at his place or mine. He'd come home from work, we'd make dinner, watch something on a streaming service, and that was it. The spark, that feeling of being pursued, was gone. He still did all the good boyfriend things. If I had a tough day with classes, he'd have dinner ready for me. If I mentioned offhand that I was out of my favorite tea, a new box would appear in my cupboard a few days later. But it felt automatic, like he was just running a program. I started to feel less like his girlfriend and more like a comfortable piece of furniture. I'd talk about this with my friend, the one who's a bit more cynical than me. She'd tell me I was crazy. She said I had a guy who treated me well, and I was looking for problems where there were none. But she didn't get it. She didn't understand the theory behind it. In my classes, we talked a lot about power structures, about how society defaults to these patriarchal norms where the man gets comfortable and the woman is expected to just maintain the status quo. I saw it happening to us. Mark was comfortable. He had won me, and now he was coasting. I felt like I was losing my power in the relationship. The anxiety started to build. I didn't want to be that girl who gets taken for granted. One night, I was doom scrolling on my phone, probably around 2 a.m., when the algorithm blessed me. A video popped up. It was a woman, very polished, talking directly to the camera. She was talking about dark feminine energy. She said that modern women had been taught to be too accommodating, too available, and that's why their men lose interest. Her thesis was simple. Men are wired to chase. If there's no chase, there's no value. She said, comfort is the killer of attraction. It was like a light bulb went off in my head. This wasn't just some random influencer. She was verbalizing everything I had been feeling. She wasn't telling women to be mean or cruel. She was telling them to reclaim their power, to create mystery, to make themselves the prize again. I watched another one of her videos, and another. It was all about subtle psychological tricks to shift the power dynamic back in your favor. It felt empowering. It wasn't about being toxic. It was about understanding male psychology and using it to your advantage. She had an online course, The Queen's Dominion, or something equally dramatic. It wasn't even that expensive. A moment of weakness fueled by late-night insecurity, and I clicked buy. I told myself it was an investment in my relationship, a way to fix things before they got too stale. I didn't tell Mark, obviously. This was my own secret project. The first module was called The Art of Scarcity. The basic idea was to make myself less available, to stop being so predictable. The coach explained that constant availability signals low value, so I started small. Mark would text me during his lunch break, like he always did. Hey, how's your morning going? Normally, I'd reply instantly with a full paragraph about my boring lecture. Following the course, I waited. I let the message sit there for 3 hours. Then I replied with a simple, good. A few minutes later, he replied, cool, everything okay? My heart pounded. It was working. He noticed a change. I waited another hour before writing back. Yep, just busy. The course said to be vague. Don't offer explanations. Let his mind fill in the blanks. That evening, he asked if I wanted to come over to watch a movie. My default answer was always yes. This time I wrote, can't tonight. I have some things to do. No explanation, just a statement. He replied, oh, okay, no problem. Rain check? I expected more pushback, more questions, but he just accepted it. It was a little anticlimactic. Still, I stuck with it. For the next week or two, I was a master of scarcity. I'd cancel plans last minute with a vague excuse. I'd let his calls go to voicemail. I'd take hours to respond to texts. He didn't seem to be panicking like the course suggested he would. He just adapted. He started making more plans with his friends. He spent more time at the gym. When I told him I was busy, he'd just say, all right, have a good time. I'm gonna hop on Discord with the guys then. It was frustrating. I felt like he was supposed to be chasing me, not finding fulfilling alternatives to spending time with me. I logged back into the course. Maybe I was doing it wrong. The next module was manufacturing competition. The coach was very clear. A man will not value you if he thinks he's the only one in your orbit. You don't have to actually cheat. You just have to plant a seed of doubt, a hint of arrival. This felt a little more deceptive, but the course framed it as simply reminding him of my market value. So I invented a guy from my sociology seminar. I started dropping his name into conversations with Mark. We'd be eating dinner, and I'd say something like, "It's funny, I was just talking about this with David in my seminar. He has such an interesting perspective on Foucault." Mark just nodded. Cool. He didn't ask who David was. He didn't seem threatened at all. I had to escalate. A few days later, I was on my phone when Mark was in the room, and I let out a little laugh. He asked what was so funny. I looked up, a little flustered on purpose. "Oh, it's nothing? Just a meme David sent me. He gets my sense of humor." I watched his face for a reaction, a flicker of jealousy, a tightening of the jaw. Nothing. He just smiled and said, "That's nice." I couldn't believe it. Was he even listening? Did he not care that another man was making me laugh? I felt this rising tide of anger. His calmness felt like a form of passive aggression, a kind of subtle male toxicity where he was pretending not to care to maintain his own power. I complained about it to my friend over coffee. I told her about the delayed texts, the canceled plans, the mentions of David. She just stared at me, her cup halfway to her lips. She told me I was playing with fire. She said Mark was a good, secure guy. And that's why he wasn't rising to the bait. He trusted me. And she said I was abusing that trust. She called the online coach a grifter selling toxic advice to insecure women. I got defensive. I told her she was brainwashed by patriarchal relationship standards. I said I was just trying to keep the spark alive, to not end up in a boring, sexless partnership like so many people do. She just shook her head and told me to be careful. She said I was going to lose him. The conversation left a sour taste in my mouth. She just didn't get it. I went home and logged back into the course, needing some validation. The next module was about maintaining frame. The idea was that the woman should be the arbiter of what's cool and what's not. The coach said that men often have childish hobbies, and that gently mocking them can make him seek your approval more. It's a way of positioning yourself as the more mature, sophisticated one in the relationship. This one felt right. It felt like a way to regain control. Mark had his hobbies. He loved his video games and spent a couple of evenings a week at the gym. He also had this little side project of building and painting intricate models from some sci-fi universe. I used to think it was kinda cute. His little corner of the living room was his workspace, and he was always so proud to show me his latest finished piece. Now, I saw it through the lens of the course. It was juvenile, so I started making little comments. One evening, he was excited about beating some difficult boss in a game he'd been playing for weeks. He was telling me the whole story, really animated. I just looked up from my book and said, "You're in your mid-20s. Don't you think you're a little old for video games?" The smile just vanished from his face. He didn't say anything. He just mumbled, "Yeah, I guess," and turned the console off. A few days later, he came home from the gym, looking energized and happy. I was in the kitchen, and I said, "You spend so much time there. Are you trying to impress someone?" The look he gave me was one of pure confusion. He told me he just liked it, that it helped him de-stress from his job. I just shrugged. Whatever you say. The worst was with his models. He was working on a particularly detailed one, a big spaceship or something. He'd been at it for over a month. He showed me the finished product, holding it up to the light so I could see all the tiny details he'd painted. I glanced at it and said, "How much time did you waste on that little toy?" He didn't say a word. He just gently placed the model back on its shelf and walked out of the room. The atmosphere in the apartment changed after that. It wasn't loud or argumentative. It was quiet. A heavy, thick kind of quiet. He stopped telling me about his day. He stopped sharing his gaming victories. He started putting on headphones when he was at his computer. He would still go to the gym, but he wouldn't talk about it when he got back. Our comfortable silence, the one I had hated for being too boring, was gone. It was replaced by a tense, awkward silence. We were living like roommates, not partners. A part of me knew this was wrong. I could see the hurt in his eyes, but I was too deep in. I had to believe the process worked. The coach's videos said this was a normal phase. They called it the resistance. It's when the man realizes the power dynamic is shifting and he subconsciously fights back against it. She said, "This is the point where most women give up. But if you push through, the breakthrough is on the other side." So, I believed her. I told myself this tension was a good sign. It meant he was feeling the effects of my actions. He was finally unsettled. The comfort was gone. I just needed one more big move to push him over the edge, to make him realize how much he needed me. I logged back into the course. It was time for the final module. It was called The Nuclear Option, The Void. The concept was simple and terrifying. Disappear completely. The coach explained that men, even the most stoic ones, are terrified of abandonment. The strategy was to cut off all contact for a minimum of 72 hours. No texts, no calls, no social media activity. She said he would go through stages. First confusion, then worry, then full-blown panic. By the time you reappear, she promised, he would be so relieved and so terrified of losing you again that he would agree to anything. He would be yours. It was the ultimate power move, the final test. I decided to do it over a weekend. It felt less suspicious. That Friday, we had a perfectly normal, if slightly quiet evening. He made pasta. We watched a movie. When he went to bed, he texted me, "Good night," like always. I read the message, and I didn't reply. The void had begun. Saturday morning arrived. I woke up feeling a strange mix of anxiety and power. I reached for my phone, my heart beating a little faster than usual. One new message, from him, sent about an hour after my silence began last night. "Guess you fell asleep. Talk in the morning." I stared at it. This was the starting line. I put the phone down on my nightstand, face down. I got up, made coffee, and tried to act like a woman who was too busy and important to be checking her phone. The course advised filling the time with self-care and activities that made you feel valuable. So, I went for a run, I tidied my apartment, I put on a face mask. Every 5 minutes, my brain would scream at me to check my phone. I resisted. I was in control. Around noon, I finally let myself look. Another message, sent around 10 a.m. "Morning, hope you have a good day." That was it. No panic, no, "Where are you?" I felt a flicker of disappointment. But the coach's voice in my head, from the video modules, said, "Patience. The first 24 hours are about planting the seed of absence." I decided to go out. Being in my apartment was making me crazy. I went to a bookstore, then a coffee shop. I sat with a book, pretending to read, but my eyes kept darting to my phone on the table. It was a constant battle not to pick it up. Around 4 p.m., it buzzed. My hands were almost shaking as I looked. It was Mark. "Hey, just checking in. You've been quiet today. Everything good?" This was it, the worry stage. The system was working. I felt a surge of triumph. He was feeling my absence. He was getting unsettled. I took a deep breath, and, as instructed, I ignored it. I put the phone in my bag and zipped it up. I finished my coffee, feeling like the main character in a movie, the powerful woman who holds all the cards. But as evening approached, the feeling started to fade. Saturday night was our night. We always spent it together. The reality of my empty apartment hit me hard. The silence I had engineered was now my own enemy. I ordered takeout, put on a movie, and tried to distract myself. I couldn't focus. My mind was entirely on him. What was he doing? Was he worried sick at home? Or was he out with his friends, not even thinking about me? That thought was a cold spike of fear. What if my friend was right? What if he wasn't playing a game, he was just living his life? I pushed the thought away. No, the course was based on male psychology. It had to work. I went to bed early, just to make the day end. Sunday morning. I woke with a jolt and grabbed my phone so fast I almost dropped it. I scrolled through the notifications. Nothing. No missed calls from the middle of the night. No string of panicked texts. The last message was from yesterday afternoon. A cold dread began to seep into my bones. This wasn't part of the script. The coach had said Sunday would be the panic stage. He was supposed to be calling my friends, maybe even driving by my apartment. But there was just nothing. The day crawled by. Every minute felt like an hour. I couldn't eat. I paced around my living room. I checked his social media. He wasn't posting anything. His online status on every app was offline. Was this his own strategy? Was he giving me a taste of my own medicine? The irony was suffocating. I had set out to make him feel desperate and needy, and now I was the one jumping at every phantom vibration of my phone. The role reversal was complete, and I was on the losing end. I started to bargain with myself. Maybe his phone broke. Maybe he was sick. Maybe there was a family emergency. Any explanation was better than the terrifyingly simple one, that he just didn't care enough to chase me. By Sunday night, I was a wreck. The feeling of power was a distant memory. All I felt was regret and a deep, gnawing loneliness. I wanted to text him. I wanted to end this stupid game, but I had come this far. The 72-hour mark was Monday morning. I just had to hold on a little longer. The course promised a breakthrough, a cathartic reunion where he would admit he couldn't live without me. I clung to that thought like a lifeline. I barely slept that night. Monday morning finally came. I had survived the 72 hours. It was time to reestablish contact. I sat on my bed for a long time, trying to figure out what to say. The course suggested a cool, casual text like, "Hey, sorry, was on a digital detox this weekend. What did I miss?" But my emotions were too raw for that. I was hurt. I was angry that he hadn't panicked properly. My fingers flew across the screen, a jumbled mess of my real feelings disguised as a concerned accusation. "Mark, I haven't heard from you all weekend. I was starting to get really worried something had happened. You just disappeared. Why wouldn't you try to call me more? I was so scared. I just needed to know you cared enough to check if I was okay." I hit send. The message went through. 1 check mark, then 2. Delivered. And then nothing. I watched my phone for what felt like an eternity. The status didn't change to read. I went to class, but I couldn't focus. I kept my phone on my desk, staring at it. Still nothing. I came home, my stomach in knots. Did he not get it? Was he angry? The silence was worse than any angry reply. Finally, around 3 p.m., my phone buzzed. My heart leaped into my throat. It was him. I opened the message, my hands trembling, ready for the flood of emotion, the apology, the explanation. But it wasn't any of that. It was a short, calm paragraph. "Vicky, I saw your social media stories this weekend, so I knew you were okay. I'm not interested in playing these kinds of games. For the past month, you've been distant, critical, and honestly, it felt like you were constantly testing me. It's been exhausting. I was looking for a partner to build a peaceful life with, not an opponent in some power struggle. This whole weekend just confirmed it for me. This isn't what I want. I wish you the best, but I'm done." I read it once, then twice. It didn't make sense. It was so cold, so final. Where was the passion? Where was the fight? I immediately started typing a reply, a long one, trying to explain, trying to backtrack. I told him it was a misunderstanding, that I was just trying to bring the spark back, that the online coach said, "This is how you keep a man interested." I poured all my confusion and panic into the message. I pressed send, and a small notification appeared underneath it. Failed to send. I tried again. Same thing. I went to his profile. The option to send a message was gone. I tried to call him. It went straight to a generic voicemail, not his personal one. He had blocked me on everything. The finality of it hit me like a physical blow. There was no argument to be had, no chance to explain. He had just opted out. He ended the game by walking off the board. The weeks that followed were a blur. The silence in my apartment was no longer a strategic tool. It was just my life. I tried to go back to the course website, looking for answers, for some module on what to do when the nuclear option backfires completely. The website was gone. A 404 not found error. The entire account, the videos, the community forum, everything had vanished. The woman who sold me the key to controlling my relationship had just taken the money and disappeared, leaving me in the rubble. My friend was right. She was a grifter. And I was the perfect customer. I had paid to destroy the one good, stable thing in my life. A month or so went by. I was starting to slowly piece myself back together. I was scrolling through my feed one night, just killing time. And then I saw it. A picture posted by a mutual acquaintance. It was from a barbecue over the weekend. There was a group of people, all smiling, holding drinks. And in the middle of the group was Mark. He was laughing, a real, genuine laugh. He looked relaxed. He looked happy. He looked like he hadn't just gone through a breakup. He looked like he had been set free. And it was in that moment that I finally understood. I was so obsessed with the idea of being the prize to be chased that I forgot to be a partner worth keeping. I had wanted a man who would fight for me, but I had created a situation where the only logical move for a self-respecting person was to walk away. He didn't stop answering because the game was too hard. He stopped answering because he realized he didn't want to play at all.